Mom dies pregnant. The next day, her family visits her grave and got shocked. I believe angels are watching over all of us, especially newborn babies. Some of these babies have traumatic inferences from their mother's homes. Newborn babies do sometimes stop breathing, in my opinion. Ideally, you should not have to get up to check. Babies should be in a basket or box of some sort right beside your bed so that you can put your hand out and check on the baby every time you slightly arouse at night. Nature is directing you to sleep lightly and in spurts rather than a deep 8 hours in order to keep your baby safe. The dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. All these people were blotted out. The things recorded in the books is all the things sins done in the flesh. Therefore, babies and the mentally challenged, mentally ill didn't do anything to be blotted out based on accountability and thus are saved. Praise Jesus. Humans of all ages experience unnecessary pain and suffering, injury and death, as well as social injustice and hardships who are causing these conditions to have such a negative effect on our happiness, who are responsible for keeping our children safe from harm and provide them with love and protection. A piece of sad and shocking news is reaching the front desk of Gossip.com. It has a pregnant woman who died and was buried for more than 4 months now has delivered her in the grave. Residents who were passing by the grave heard the cry of the baby and then decided to exhume the grave. But to their surprise, they found out that the lady had given birth in the grave. According to a social media user who posted the video on the internet, a pregnant woman died after 4 months. They heard a baby crying in her grave. They excavated the pit and noticed she gave birth to a baby inside her grave. Hear the whole truth about what really happened here. The Telegraph reports a pregnant 16-year-old who was mistakenly declared dead and buried alive in Honduras last week woke up in her grave screaming, prompting her family to desperately try and dig her out. She was taken to a hospital where she was pronounced dead for the second time. Nacy Perez, 16, was 8 months pregnant when she was first declared dead last week. She reportedly heard gunfire near her home in La Entrada and fell unconscious. The family reportedly believed she was possessed and called for a priest to perform an exorcism. She was later taken to a hospital where she was pronounced dead. Perez was buried in her wedding dress a day later. Her husband, Rudy Gonzalez, and family was visiting her grave when he heard sounds coming from within. Gonzalez told Primary Impact he heard noises coming from inside. Cemetery workers also reported hearing muffled sounds as well. He said he heard banging. Then he heard her voice screaming for help. That's when family members and cemetery workers scrambled to break the tomb open. The footage below, which is very graphic, shows them opening her coffin and trying to revive Perez. Perez was unresponsive, but family members said that she felt warm and had bruising on the tips of her fingers. The viewing glass on the coffin was smashed. Perez was transported to a hospital, but it was too late. She was once again pronounced dead, but the amazing thing that she gave birth after being dead. Twin with weak heartbeat Perez has since been buried again at the same site. Her mother, Maria Gutierrez, said she believes the hospital was too quick to sign off on her daughter's death in the first place. She didn't look like she had died, Gutierrez said. Doctors think when Perez heard the gunfire, it may have triggered a panic attack, which could have briefly stopped her heart. It also could have been a cataplexy attack, which, according to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, is a sudden loss of voluntary muscle tone while awake that makes a person go limp or unable to move. NIDS also reports that while a cataplexy attack can occur spontaneously, it is more often triggered by sudden, strong emotions such as fear, anger, stress, excitement, or humor. Mr. Gonzalez told local TV news, "Primer Impact, I was heartbroken because my sweetheart had been taken so suddenly from me. I wanted to be near her. As I put my hand on her grave, I could hear noises inside. I heard banging, and then I heard her voice. She was screaming for help. It had already been a day since we buried her. I could not believe it. I was ecstatic, full of hope." Cemetery worker Jesus Valuva said he had heard all the noises coming from the grave. He said, "I convinced myself that the screams were coming from somewhere else. I never imagined that there was someone alive in there. That afternoon, the girl's husband came to me, begging me to get her out because she was alive. He was hysterical. The family were soon here and started breaking through the tomb, shouting her name." MS Perez was taken by truck to the nearest hospital in San Pedro Sula. where she was carried still inside her coffin. However, although medics tried to revive her, all the tests they carried out showed that she was clinically dead, Dr. Claudia Lopez recalled. The whole family rushed in, almost breaking down the door, carrying the girl in her casket. I told them to take her out and put her on the bed. Everybody was claiming she was alive, so I went through all the necessary procedures. We evaluated and tried everything, but the girl was dead. They put her back in the coffin and took her away again, back to the cemetery. Doctors believe MS Perez may have suffered a severe panic attack, which could have temporarily stopped her heart activity. Another hypothesis is that the teenager had a cataplexy attack, an abrupt, temporary loss of voluntary muscle function, typically triggered by a strong emotional stimulus such as stress or fear, during which the victim maintains full consciousness and awareness. She may have died from a lack of oxygen after waking up inside the closed coffin. Her cousin, Carolina Perez, said, "Once we had taken her out of the tomb, I put my hand on her body. She was still warm, and I felt a faint heartbeat. She had scratches on her forehead and bruises on her fingers. It looked like she had tried desperately to get out of the casket and hurt herself." MS Perez's mother, Maria Gutierrez, firmly believes her daughter was buried alive and blames medics for being too quick to sign her death certificate. She said the doctors declared her dead, but everybody else around me kept telling me she wasn't. She did not look like she had died. Even after a day in the tomb, the color of her body was normal. Her corpse didn't smell. She just looked like she was in deep sleep. There were no rigor mortis. Her body was still flexible. It was impossible that she had been dead for so many hours. We were also so happy after being declared dead for such a long time. Everybody was saying that she had come back to life. We were also happy. I thought I was going to get my daughter back. Coffin birth, also known as post-mortem fetal extrusion, is the expulsion of a non-viable fetus through the vaginal opening of the decomposing body of a deceased pregnant woman due to increasing pressure from intra-abdominal gases. This kind of post-mortem delivery occurs very rarely during the decomposition of the body. The practice of chemical preservation, whereby chemical preservatives and disinfectant solutions are pumped into a body to replace natural body fluids and the bacteria that reside therein, have made the occurrence of coffin birth so rare that the topic is rarely mentioned in international medical discourse. Typically, during the decomposition of a human body, naturally occurring bacteria in the organs of the abdominal cavity, such as the stomach and intestines, generate gases as byproducts of metabolism, which causes the body to swell. In some cases, the confined pressure of the gases can squeeze the uterus, the womb, even forcing it downward, and it may turn inside out and be forced out of the body through the vaginal opening, a process called prolapse. If a fetus is contained within the uterus, it could therefore be expelled from the mother's body through the vaginal opening when the uterus turns inside out, in a process that, to outward appearances, mimics childbirth.